Hello. Today we are going to work on Matisse painted paper collage and gestural silhouettes. And we're going to discuss a little bit about Mr. Henri Matisse, who was a French artist. He worked at the same time that Pablo Picasso did. He was born in 1869 and died in 1954. He is known for his paintings, which he created paintings of still lifes with bold color and pretty strong lines. He also did figures. Here's another painting of a lady. The title is Woman with Exotic Plant. And the title of this doesn't have a title. It looks like, Apples on a Pink Tablecloth. So you can see a lot of his paintings were kind of impressionistic, but working at the same time as Pablo Picasso. He became ill later on in his life and was no longer able to paint and was bedridden and was confined to either his bed or a wheelchair. But through that adversity, he struggled and came out of it still using his creativity in a different way. He chose to paint papers of color and then cut shapes out of them to create pictures. So in our lesson today, we are going to focus on creating a gestural silhouette, which is just a person in a piece of black paper and painted paper to create a background for that person to be. And I have an example of some of his what they call cutouts, which are painted paper collages. So in Mr. Matisse's, he has a silhouette on a background with things that I, in my mind, think are stars, but they can also be organic shapes like plants. This is another one of his cutouts of a figure, person's body. And I don't know if there's any more examples in this particular book, but the title of this book is Drawing with Scissors, and there's a lot of information about him as an artist. I am going to read a book that's a little shorter called Henry Scissors, and it's written by Jeanette Winter. So Henry's Scissors. In a small weaving town in France, a young boy named Henri Emile Benoit Matisse watched his mother paint china. He wanted to paint too. He drew pictures in the sand and he drew pictures in his school books. When Henry was a young man, he drew pictures in his law books and on contracts, deeds, and wills. Henry was sick in bed with appendicitis one winter. His mother gave him a box of paints, and he painted until he was well. So much like you might in your school books or when you're supposed to be listening to the teacher, you might doodle, much like Henry did. He kept on painting, forgot about law, and left his small town to be an artist in Paris. So he took all of those scholarly things and decided, no, I really want to be an artist, and he moved to the capital of France, which is Paris. He painted with pictures day after day and year after year. And another one of his famous paintings is a woman in a red room. He was happy and his paintings made people happy. But when Matisse was an old man, he fell ill. So ill he couldn't paint. So ill he couldn't sit up. So ill he could only lie in his bed and sleep. His paintings floated by in his dreams. Matisse finally opened his eyes, and they were filled with sadness. He must remain in bed or use a wheelchair. Would he ever have the energy to paint again? He's sad, and sometimes we just don't know. When Matisse was strong enough to travel, he went to the seaside. The sea air might make him get well. Before long, he sat up. A little later, he drew. Then one day, Matisse picked up a pair of scissors and cut out shapes from painted paper. He was drawing with scissors. A pair of scissors is a wonderful instrument. An instrument. We can also call that a tool. Matisse cut his paper all day. My pleasure in cutting things out grows greater and greater. Why didn't I think of it earlier? His assistants painted paper for him all day. It seems to me that I am in a second life. Paper cutouts covered his walls. So he made these collages of paper and made pictures, and it gave him great pleasure. One evening, Matisse lay in a bed and drew the faces of his grandchildren on the ceiling with pieces of chalk tied to a long pole. As he fell asleep, they looked down on him, and he saw his dreams. They saw the shapes that surrounded him in sleep. Look at, there's what could look like a bird, a leaf, a face. As he went on, Matisse cut bigger and bigger shapes. They filled the seaside room with color. You see, as I am obliged to remain often in bed, I have made a little garden around me where I can walk. There are leaves, fruit, a bird. I am deeply contented and happy. So his organic shapes that fill the wall with color, and he's in his wheelchair. Then one night, Matisse walked out into his paper garden, and the rainbow of shapes cradled the old artist and carried him into the heavens. Are some of the stars we see at night coming to us from Henry Scissors? Perhaps. So I really like this book because it explains how he pulled himself out of his sadness and was able to continue to create some pretty neat things. So in our project, the first step is to take some paper and to paint it in order for you to have pieces of paper to work with. You can either paint it with watercolor, you could paint it with tempera, which is this tempera. You could even use markers to cover the paper. I just would like you to use solid color. And then once you have that painted, we're going to use that to collage those pieces on that background. Once you do that, you can set that aside and create your silhouette. Now, a silhouette is the shape of a person or a form. It could be an animal. There are wolf silhouettes with a moon behind them. It's just to create a shadow against something brighter. So the silhouette that I'm speaking of is the black figure in the middle of the paper. And if, like in Mr. Matisse's drawings in his book, there's the figure that had action with those stars behind it. So you can choose whatever pose you would like. You might want to practice first. And so in practicing, you want to fill the full page in order to get the bigger piece of person you can. We don't want to do one that's small and in the corner, but we want to fill the space with our figure. So on that black piece of paper, which I'm not going to draw on it because you won't be able to see, but on that black piece of paper, and if you would like to practice before, which is what this white paper is, I'm going to put my head up here, I'm going to put my body through here, and I'm going to put my legs through here, and I'm going to practice lightly with my pencil. You can't really see it probably, but I'm lightly drawing with my pencil, and I'm not holding it really tight and trying to get a lot of detail. So the gestural part of that is just getting the action or the motion within the body. So we want to try and figure out where those body parts are, our legs and our arms and our knees and our feet. And it does not have to be perfect. This is supposed to just kind of capture the action in the body. And I'm doing it light. It's kind of like that. And once I feel more confident, I'm going to draw darker and kind of feel out where I want them to go. So I want this to be my, and then this, my knees, my legs, and that's kind of what I want my figure to be. You can practice many different poses. Maybe ask your brother or sister to stand still so you can draw them for a little bit, or ask your mom and dad. Once we have that idea, we're going to draw that picture on our black paper. We're going to try and figure out where we want that person to be and how to fill that space full so we have a nice, solid figure for our project to place on top of our backgrounds. So I don't know if you'll be able to see that a little bit in the light. We want to draw our figure and we want to capture that action. And that is what is called a gestural drawing. Once you have that figure cut out and your collage is made, I will just grab one of the student works. They did their gestural a little bubbly, which is completely fine. Doesn't have to be as pointy as mine. But they captured some sort of movement in that person's figure. And then collaged the paper and placed it on top. And I hope you really enjoy doing this project because it has so many fun parts to it. And I do really like the work of Henry Matisse, and that he used scissors as his tools and painted paper that is just so creative. Hope you enjoy this project. Thanks.